Good evening out there, live at Pompeii we have Saturday the 6th of December 2020. How are you out there?
Good. Thank
Good.
you. Did you have a nice nap?
No?
No.
So divided we fall. No, united we stand, divided we fall. So should we unite ourselves? So my voice becomes a little bit elaborate because I talk quite too much the last couple of days. However, you understand me.
I can, yeah.
So, who's there from the States? And the other ladies and guys are from? One lady's from Austria, the other lady and the boy also from Austria. Karina's where? From where?
From Germany.
From Germany. Okay, that's really far away. Where in Germany?
Hamburg.
Hamburg.
Yeah.
Okay. So
where everything will begin.
yeah, in Gestach we saw you will have a very nice vaccination center, and we're an old chemistry schoolroom. The vaccination is mixed together every morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, sounds very yeah, trust development like, and so everybody's in this meeting speaks perfect German above the lady from the Netherlands, is it? This lady in Lavantal, from which country do you come?
Naja, mein Deutsch is sorry, English. My German, I think, is quite good.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'm from Spain, actually.
Spain. Okay, so we are quite international, a little bit. Okay, and how many guys are from Secret Service here? Come on, Secret Service. Why do you do that every evening? Do you learn something? Oh, it's just your job. So, is anybody else there who would like to switch on the camera? No. Okay. What we shall do today, tonight, this evening?
Continue the trivium. Oh,
Okay. Sounds spacey. Okay. So we have to do something for our brothers and sisters in the States or in England. By time it will perhaps reach them. Also, we had a guy the other day who told me Saturday night, no chance that you will get anybody from the States. So, Heidi, do you know why this Saturday is sacred for American people?
I have no idea. They are busy enjoying the weekend. I have no clue.
Well, they just waiting and hoping that Trump will make it anyhow. And above that,
I cannot speak for all the people. I can only speak for myself. So it's hard to tell.
so you think the Americans are even more brainwashed compared to Germans?
It's hard to say. I think, you have to understand this. There are over 300 million people living here.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of people awakened. They have their own sources and what they join, or I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I don't know how to reach them. I cannot even reach my German and Austrian friends. So they sleep too,
Okay.
some of them.
Good. Then I just proceed with that logical fallacies. I think yesterday we also talked a little bit about spotlight, and this logical fallacy is used to a vast extent in our mass media and also in alternative media, though they lie even if they do not lie, because by selecting informations which are of no value at all. Yeah, and the really true information is hidden. So if you want to know, if you want to get an idea what's really going on out there, you have to put the spotlight on the top of the hierarchy of power. And without knowing what is really on top of this pyramid of power, we don't know what's going on. So, Karina, you are now here the second day, is it?
My second night.
Okay. So, what do you think is on top of the hierarchy of power? Who's pulling the strings?
Well, I think it is something that is not human, obviously,
Yeah.
because the way we treat our earth, it shows that it's like we don't belong to here, because every time you're home, you try to keep it clean and in order. So we're not doing it right now with our earth. And I know it's not something inside us, but it's has put inside us. That's why we behave the way we behave.
And if you would put a word on it, a term, what word would you use?
Not human.
And yes, and more precise.
I think if we could really see the being, we could
Yeah.
not even realize it, that it's there. For example, the example of the Indians when the Spanish came to South America,
Yeah.
they were not able to see the ships. It was only the shaman who could see it. And only after he told his people what he saw and they tried to focus on that, they could also see. But
Oh.
before, they were not able to see it.
Oh, so suppose you are a shaman. How would you describe it? What pulls the strings? Is it an artificial intelligence? Is it a parasite? Are these aliens?
Well, I have to tell you that 5 years ago, I was in Peru having ayahuasca sessions. And during one session, I saw it so clearly that many years ago, many hundred, maybe 1,000 years ago, some um, engineers, I saw that like engineers, that they were creating us. We were raw the way we were, but they were refining us.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it very, very clear. So I didn't really see them as not human, but I saw them as engineers who are not from our race.
Okay, so you expect some alien beings.
Yes.
Okay. This is a very important question, yeah? And only if we have an idea what's on the top of this pyramid, we may get an idea about what is their plan and how we may destroy their plan. Because the plan which might be now ruled out for us is not very exciting for us. And I think we have to do something about that, and we have to identify who is really on the top of the pyramid, with a strategic viewpoint, we have to identify their weak and their strong points. And we have to identify our potential as well. We have to identify our weak points and our strong points. And we have to manage that our strong points targeting their weak points and to get free. I think this is really the objectives of our group. Yeah, we want to save the world. That's why we are here. Okay, so I said it already yesterday, but may I repeat myself. Also, the alternative media here in Germany and in the States as well target the highlighted news from the mainstream media. And so the really important questions you will not be tackled even in the mainstream media, and so not in the alternative media. And it might springs to mind that not even the mainstream medias, but also the alternative medias are controlled to some extent. So it's always important to pose the right questions, that we think for ourselves what's really important, and do we find answers to the things which really matters in our media. Okay. Does anybody still watch television? Karina, do you?
No, sometimes I go on YouTube and watch Tagesschau just to
Okay.
know what is happening in the circus.
Okay. And when it goes down to find the right middle, yeah? So normal people are looking on the left and the right, and then they come to the conclusion that they have to elect a woman like Angela Merkel or somebody in that area. And it very much looks that the right-wing people are bought and paid, and as well the left-wing people are bought and paid. And because of that, we think it might be a decent decision to give your vote to CDU or SPD. So they always try to go to the middle. Straw man. Do you know this argument, straw man? Ever heard about that? So you exaggerate, distort, or misinterpret by purpose an argument of your counterpart. And in the next step, you disprove that modified argument. And finally, you declare this disproval of this argument as representative for all the stuff your counterpart is saying. Yeah? So journalists are very good in that. And at the end of the day, you think yourself, oh, what happened now? How you could manage to turn around the words in your mouth. And so you always have to be alert when your counterpart repeats your argument in a slightly different way. And so really good guys hypnotize you. Okay.
It's hypnotized. It's
Pardon?
hypnotized. Just hypnotized.
They just hypnotize you.
Yeah.
And thank you. And you really are not aware what happened. Yeah. And journalists, lawyers are very good in that. And be alert when those guys repeat your argument in a slightly different way. Did something like that happen to you once? That the counterpart distorts your argument? Are you aware of that this happens? And they are smart people who are doing that. And so it's a very good thing to be aware of all those logical fallacies and put the right name on it. Because you don't have to go in arguments with those guys. You just tell them the logical fallacy they just used. And if you are doing that several times, you break their pattern. So it's really smart to know all about those logical fallacies. Wrong dilemma. One constructs seemingly solutions of a problem and confronts the victim to choose between A, B, C, or D. The optimum solution is deliberately not mentioned. Yeah, this happens at the poll. Yeah, when you choose between some politicians of different parties. Yeah, so you think when you go to the poll, you really have the choice to choose the perfect candidate or the perfect party? Trump or Biden, several TV networks, you may choose between genetically modified food and strongly modified food. However, you go to the supermarket and think, oh, there's a really vast offering to several products, but more or less they are all the same. The perfect product, which really substantiate your health, is not available. Appeal to pity. Or in Latin it's called ad miseriordicam. Though it must be true because it was so terrible. The soldiers came into the hospital, took out the babies and smashed their head against the wall. It was so terrible. You know that story? Yeah? Though this lady really rolled out the first Iraq war called Desert Storm. So she was actually an actor and the daughter of the diplomat of Kuwait in the UN, and just gave a performance of her acting abilities toward the people of the world. And after that, they declared war against Iraq. But it started with the performance of an actor. Yes, and this is a strong point, appeal to pity. Yeah, so the real heroes, when a woman is crying, he has to get in action, is it? I have to look something. No. Okay. Bitte lauter.
Are you an elite? Are your staged attacks not going as planned? Are your globalist agendas failing because you're using subpar crisis actors? Well, then look no further. Hi, I'm Harrison Hanks, the ultimate crisis actor. Need a medical doctor? In 18 years as a medical examiner, I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Is this one over the top? Is this one different?
Yeah, it's over the top. 33 children died. Do you need a grieving husband? Did a right-winger set off a bomb? Right, yeah, we're just milling about it, and then I had a massive explosion. And I'm your man. Tired of melodramatic acting?
There's light away from the darkness.
I'm just trying to figure out if he's okay.
I lost my 20-year-old, but I had 20 years with my son.
It's just tragedy, horror, and tragedy.
Or maybe you need me to tone down my good acting to match your sorry lot of wannabes. In that case, I can go from this. My name is Bobby Palmer. My family's one of the families that lost a child. To this. My name is Bobby Palmer, and my family's one of the families that lost a child. Going for the guns takes subtlety, like this. I don't know how many more need to die before the president does something. Not this.
And please, could we do something with the assault weapons?
And every one of those hands is a reason why those weapons should not be out in the general public.
Because in this kind of a situation, what has changed? Have we learned nothing?
Tired of green screen mishaps and disappearing noses? Me too.
You take it. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say?
I'm green screen ready, bonded, and insured. I can morph into 1,000 different faces. I offer reasonable rates, and I have no conscience. Just pick your card to play on the world stage. From homeless to police officer, from doctor to witness, to your ace card, the grieving father. You can count on Harrison Hanks to push through your agenda. Regain their trust. Call Harrison Hanks for all your crisis needs. Thank you, and good luck.
So, did you know that all those crises which we see on TV is more or less staged with crisis actors? I think it's so obvious, and so few people really get the picture.
We had even in newspapers ads where they're looking for crisis actor.
Okay, so they are even honest. Yeah, and you know, in the States, it's now all about to get away the weapons, your guns. And if you don't have any guns anymore, you have to accept the vaccines. And so in Germany, we had this expression called Spießbürger. So Spießbürger, actually those citizens who have the right to wear weapons. And only those citizens are real citizens. Yeah. And nowadays we think it is bad to have a weapon. Yeah. So it's good for the government that we cannot defend ourselves. If we would be able to defend ourselves, I think some things what they are doing, actually, they would never ever dream to do. Appeal to mathematical complexity. So this is also quite popular. So experts are simulating something, like the horror show of carbon dioxide, or they simulate the collapse of the Twin Towers, and you know, you can simulate nearly everything, and people believe the simulation, but they never ever mentioned the assumptions or the basic assumption they developed their mathematical structure about. Yeah. And so when people are looking, oh, this is mathematics, this must be complicated, they just believe it. So collapse the Twin Towers, they were 23 engineers who simulated the things, and that, yes, that's the way it happened. And people believe it. Appeal to statistic. It must be true due to the numbers. However, there are uncountable possibilities to interpret any statistic. Yeah? So a statistic doesn't show you how it is. A statistic are only good to disprove an idea, an assumption. But when you don't know that, and this statistic might impress you. So you only can read a statistic if you're involved in mathematics. And many people get frustrated with mathematics in school and think you are not apt to that. And so they can fool you around with mathematics as long as they want. Oh, Paul shows nobody makes the Germans more proud like Angela Merkel. So they really put it down in the media, something like that. Wrong picture word association. Terms are associated with emotional pictures, which have basically nothing in common. The terms are just positively or negatively conditioned in our subconscious mind. So tell me what's wrong in that. You see this CO2 catastrophe like pictures with that. However, CO2 is invisible. It has no color. You don't see it. So this is more or less mainly water vapor with some dirt, but not CO2. Oh, what's wrong in that? Do you see the manipulation? The fruit and vegetables. Where's the manipulation?
There's no vegetables.
There are some vegetables.
Okay.
The fruit.
Pardon?
The fruit.
Yes, there are some fruits. There are many fruits. So where's the manipulation?
They say it's one category.
Exactly. Yeah. So fruit and vegetables are two categories. And yeah, vegetables are healthy, typically, but fruits are not. They contain, in many cases, too much sugar. So you think it's one category. You always mention fruit and vegetables, but they are two different categories. And so you think to eat fruit, it's healthy. But it's not. You have to differentiate. Intelligence has something to do with your ability to differentiate. Appeal to guilt. Oh, if you don't vaccinate your child, you are guilt if dangerous diseases might spread. You are guilty. You like to be guilty? Who likes to be guilty? And that's really how they get us. However, guilt is an invention of the church, of the religion. Is a lion is he guilty if he gets an antelope? No, but we don't want to be guilty. Yeah, and if you don't want to be guilty, it's easy to make a victim out of yourself.
They do this right now the same way with the mask. You have
Yeah.
to feel guilty if you don't wear it because you have no respect for your other human being.
Okay. So this argument is so ridiculous, however, it works. And if people would be aware of this logical fallacy, it just wouldn't work. And interestingly, these logical fallacies, they were taught in Germany before the First World War. You would never ever get your Abitur if you are not aware, if you wouldn't be aware of those logical fallacies and trivium. Guilt by association. Though there are special terms used by not so social groups, by groups at the outside the normal. So if you use a word, or you wear some special clothes, or you're doing things which are done also by not social groups, you are guilty by association. So in Germany, for example, using the word Gleichschalter, yeah, the guys who how you call it, sympathizes with the time before 1945, said Hitler built the Autobahn. Yeah. So if you use the word Autobahnen in relation to the Third Reich, you are guilty. You are a Nazi. Just using the word Autobahn. Or this propaganda minister, Goebbels, once said that the media and the newspapers all tells the same in the Western country. In the Western countries, he used this word Gleichschalter. Yeah, this is a Nazi term. If you're using this word and say, though the media, the mainstream media here in Germany are telling all the same, they are gleichgeschaltet, you are a Nazi. So you have to be very much aware of the words you use. Even is it true what you are saying? Yeah? If you use the wrong word, you're categorized in a group where you do not want to be. But this is guilt by association. So it's always good to know these terms. So if somebody picks on you, you are guilty because you're using this word, you responding by, that's guilt by association, it's just a logical fallacy. Ad populum, appeal to mass. A statement is qualified as true if many people believe in that statement. Yeah. However, this appeal to mass. For example, this picture was taken when Hitler drove in front of his group, and everybody's making that. However, the smart guy, the scientist, is making that. Yeah? So, but many people have a good feeling if they can hide themselves in the mass. But that's a logical fallacy. And if you really look on the things some 70 years before happened in Germany, one should say that the mass doesn't know better. Yeah? However, our politicians argue with, oh, we have a majority who wants to go to be vaccinated. This is just ad populum. Appeal to conscience. This is a kind of ad populum. So, for example, this philosopher I like very much. Yeah, many people say, so how you call it in English? This word.
Questionable, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
You-
This guy is very much questioned. Yeah. So, if something is not questioned, it can't be good. Appeal to ignorance, ad ignorantiam. It must be true because it's not proved to be wrong. Yeah, so it's quite popular that scientists, if you want to talk about special items, which doesn't meet his core competence, yeah, those guys like this question. That's not my business. Yeah. However, this is very dangerous because what happens out there has to be our business. The things that happen in these days have to be our business. Yeah. So the time is gone where everybody is just an expert, and so it's important that we have the big picture, that we want to know the big picture. So I'm a specialist in nutrients, yeah, and I understand how important it is that we get all the nutrients which are actually or had been actually in our soil, to get it via our food into our body. And so we need about 80 different minerals and trace elements. However, from these 80 minerals and trace elements, only 5 to 10 are still put into the fertilizer. And so when the vegetables are sucking all out those elements, trace elements, minerals, year by year out of the soil, and you just put 10 different elements again on the soil, this soil will be extracted by about 80% of the different trace elements and minerals. And so this is no coincidence that our body gets depleted by many important elements, trace elements, minerals, which actually work in our body as a kind of biochemical or biophysical tool. And so it's not a coincidence that many diseases like cancer, heart diseases are rising up dramatically. Do you get the manipulation out of this statement by Stephen Hawking? The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. What's wrong on that statement?
Illusion?
What do you mean with illusion?
It's a illusion. How do you, wait a sec, let me think.
So you know that there are many people which are proclaiming that Stephen Hawking died already in the year 2000, and that just the computer animated figure was sitting in the wheelchair, driven by electrodes and by a computer synthesized voice. So where is manipulation in this quotation? So, example, Peter the baker bakes the perfect chocolate cake ever on the face of the earth. Are you able to do the same? To bake the same perfect chocolate cake? What has to happen that you get the same result like Peter the baker? Is it enough to have his recipe?
You will never have the same, even if you have the same recipe.
Yeah.
It's only a one thing, what he did.
Yeah. So it's important that you have to shut down your micro. So it's important that you don't have the right recipe, but Peter the baker goes to the market and smells on the different ingredients. Yeah. And if this smell represents a smell he has in his memory, in his brain, then he might take it. So, and this is important that you do not have the right ingredients, but you have to select all the things in the right sequence and order. Yeah, so the sequence and order is very important. So you don't mix the things together and before you put it in the oven. If you take your ingredients first in the oven and then you are mixing it together, it doesn't work. So the order and sequence is important. And in order to be aware that knowledge is illusion, you first have to give up your ignorance. So there's no way that you come to the conclusion that knowledge is illusion, or it's to some degree illusional. You first have to give up your ignorance. So, and when he poses this quote, or whoever who did it, you think ignorance is not important. Yeah. However, ignorance is the key to get aware that most of what we think is knowledge is delusion. Appeal to emotion. The try to get some emotion in your counterpart started. Yeah, you might scare him. You might put him into an enthusiastic mode. If you want that he signs a contract or buys a special product. So you always have to be cautious or alert when your counterpart tries to install some emotions in you. So in the way of trivium, it's important that you get all this information in a very neutral emotional state. If you are not in a neutral emotional state, it's easy to manipulate you. And you know, when you go to a medical doctor, you might not be in a neutral emotional state, is it? If he looks on this X-ray photographs and frowns, it might scare you. And though some people say those medical doctors are very good salesmen. Yes? And you too have to be a good salesman to be aware that the other guy is a good salesman and get out of the trap. So medical doctors, for me, are perfect salesmen. And they are trained to be perfect salesmen in university or at college. Oh, the news about dead people because they get a flu or a virus, that scares people. But however, in a state of being scared, you are not able to make a good decision. So this is why it is important that you are able to control your emotions. And if you know, if you are aware that good salesmen playing around with your emotions, you might be protected against manipulation. Because trivium sociological fallacies is all about to defend yourself against manipulation, which are not in your favor. Appeal to superstition. So if you go to a media and she looks in her glass ball, in a crystal ball, yeah, and makes a very important face, it might shift your emotional state. And those good, high-paid media are also very good salesmen or saleswomen. Yeah? And you have to be aware of that. That those really successful media, yeah, are very good trained how to manipulate you. Who likes to go to those media and asking crystal balls? Is anybody here? And if you recall the things of this guy called Alexander Laurent, he talks about that those media are attached or connected with demons or with an artificial intelligence which created those demons. And so this thing, looking in a crystal ball or asking cards, is quite dangerous. So this is called appeal to superstition. Composition. What's specifically true might not be true in general. So when emergency doctors really make a good job, and I think they do normally a very good job, it doesn't mean that normal doctors also do a good job. Though this is called composition. Division. What's true in general must not be true in detail. For example, yes, a smartphone is a good thing in general. But why it has to have a camera which observes you all the time and a micro which might spy on you all the time? So intelligence has something to do with the ability to differentiate. Red herring. Do you know what's a red herring? Have you ever made the experience you had a hard talk to somebody and now you really come to the point? Yeah? And then he deflects. He says something which has nothing to do with the actual theme. That's called a red herring. That's a try to put the highlight, to highlight something else. And when somebody is doing this stuff to me, I always say red herring. So it's really good and really powerful, yeah, to see the picture and to put the right names on the actions, on those manipulating actions your counterpart is trying to do upon you. Slippery slope. You're proposing a chain of casualities now, a chain of assumptions. And you have to be aware that the first assumption must be true, must really reflect, represent the thing what's it all about. So when the first assumption is wrong, everything you deduce or you how in English? So the first assumption must be right or really meet the topic. Everything you build on this assumption when it's wrong, it's bullshit. When we talk now about viruses, yeah, you really have to be aware what a virus is. If you talk about this PCR test and say, oh, so many people are tested positive, you really have to understand this test. Is this test really testing a virus or is it testing something else? What's about this test design? Repeating a process where you double the amount of the actual DNA 50 times, that means 2 power to 50, or it means 10 power to 15, or 100 million times 1 billion. And if you really understand what they are doing, you think, really? I give you an explanation. So what this test is doing, you have 1 gram of sugar, 1 gram on my hand, and you have a razor blade, and divide it in 100 equal parts. And you throw away 99 parts. And what remains, you again divide in 100 parts with a ultra-precise razor blade. And again, put away 99 parts. And then you put it on a microscope. And with a special design tool, you again divide it in 100 parts. And again, put away 99 parts. And then you perform this PCR test. Do you know what's the amount of product material where you end up starting on nothing? Do you have an idea where you will end up? With this little bit of nothing, you perform this PCR test. Do you have any idea? Karina? What do you think? Just an idea. You have a little bit of nothing. And now you make this PCR test or procedure. So, and you cycle it 50 times, and by each cycle you double the amount of material. So where will you end up? What do you think? What many grams do you have when you perform this test with starting with a little bit of nothing?
Well, I don't know how the PCR test is working, the functionality.
Okay.
So maybe you think that I know how the function is, but actually I don't know.
Okay, then I try to explain. Do we have something? So the DNA is looking like this, yeah? And you have an idea how the DNA looks, which you want to multiply. Yeah? So you want to multiply these DNAs. And if you have a lot of that, you have a signal. But the signal depends on the amount of DNA you have. So you first have to multiply it. And so you have to know which sequences of these DNA are representative for this DNA. And those parts, what you think are representative, you have to put in any cycle. And there you have an enzyme which works very fast. And this enzyme helps that the sequences you put into this test liquid might be arranged with this enzyme in the right manner and the right sequence. So you have to put in all the time the right sequences and hope that this enzyme put it together in the right manner. Copying always, so doubling always the material amount of material. So now you start with, in this procedure, you departed 3 times in 100 parts and throw always these 99 parts away. So you start actually with 10 micrograms, which you can hardly see in the microscope. In a high-performance microscope, it's hard to see it. And then you make this PCR test with about 50 cycles.
No, I know what you mean. This is so micro. This is so small, and we really think we can look at it and analyze it, but actually we're not able. It is not possible.
Exactly, and now you make this multiplication procedure. And with this multiplication procedure, you can, at the end of the day, you might test everything. Yeah, you start with nothing and you end up with 1,000 tons. Yeah, you have 1,000 cars in a line. Yeah, if you make yourself aware of that, it's easy to qualify that as ridiculous. This is not a test. This is more a trick of cards. And so people, scientists, medical doctors accept that. But the normal medical doctors are specialists in virology, doesn't understand the chemistry behind it and how ridiculous this method of analyze, this analytic method is. It is not a method, it's just a procedure of a trick of cards. And so we are using this trick of cards to shut down the whole society. And here we become aware something must be wrong, and must be wrong in a big way. That's called slippery slope. So when the first assumption is ridiculous, then everything is ridiculous you deduce from this first wrong assumption. And so we only discuss the measures of the result, of the so-called result, but the result is not a result because the basic assumption is ridiculous. But the politicians who make from these ridiculous assumptions decisions can only be ridiculous. If you start with bullshit, you will end up with big bullshit. Okay.
So we had a nice example today. I've explained it here to my mate. She's living with us, and the German catastrophe ministry has a video that goes 1 minute, and the first sentence is all enemies of humankind were always invisible, and what was the other thing? Invisible and
Small.
Lethal. Invisible and
lethal. Okay.
No, it was invisible and unpredictable. These were the two things. So, and then they come up with the smallpox as next, and then they come with the Spanish flu. And you can stop this video after 20 seconds after the first sentence and just forget about the rest, because all the rest is connecting pictures, images with emotions and logical fallacies, because the first sentence is slippery slope already. So I found that very subtle, but at the same way, if you understand it, it's rude.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of rude in a way. So you must see it. You cannot oversee it. If you learn this habit, if you make it a habit to use these logical fallacies or to test videos or information, you see it's quite easy then.
Okay. So I think that's enough for today. So in this start of the evening, I actually thought I make a Zoom conference about 1.5 hours. I think it was 3.5 hours. And I think some of you even joined that first Zoom call this evening. And we might call it a day, is it? We have to get an idea how we really get our brothers and sisters from the States to be involved. We have to save the world, and we probably have to save America. We will not do it alone in Germany. So, and I'm committed to save the world. Will you help me? Thank you. Thank you for tonight. Have a big hug, and we see us again tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Heidemarie? Heidemarie?
Meine Maus was
jetzt?
not working. Yeah. My mouse was not working.
So if you have time, if you find time for tomorrow, we could go on talking about methods to spread the message.
I'm not sure yet. Tomorrow is a good time.
Okay.
Yeah. Monday would be better.